right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Workshop Wednesdays with Mentor Me Collective. We're thrilled to have you guys join us today, and we're happy to help you control your finances. As you settle in, please drop some money bag emojis in the chat to let us know that you're ready and here to control your finances. For those who are new to Mentor Me Collective, we're a community that's dedicated to empowering individuals, especially first-gen techies, with the knowledge and tools to help them succeed in their personal and professional lives. My name is Amber, and I'm today's workshop host. Great, so we got some money bags in the chat. I love it. Okay. So today's workshop topic is build and budget. Create your own budget tracker. Today we'll explore how to create a practical tool to manage your finances effectively. Whether you're a student, a young professional, or anyone looking to better manage their budget, this workshop is for you. Now, let me introduce our incredible speaker, Rafna Bash, a technology consultant, educator, and mentor with over 10 years of experience in software development, infrastructure, and leads tech projects. She's worked across industries from fintech to nonprofits, helping teams build practical, scalable solutions. She's the founder of Aktibeto, a platform that supports professionals, especially women transitioning into tech careers, through mentorship, hands-on projects, and real-world guidance. She's led community programs through Google Women's Tech Makers and Women Who Code, and is passionate about creating inclusive spaces for women who can learn, build, and thrive. All right. Rafna, welcome to our webinar, our workshop today.
Thank you, Amber. I'm thrilled to be here today.
Great. Before we dive in, let's do an icebreaker and a fun question. If your budgeting style was a type of food, what would it be and why?
I would say pizza.
Pizza.
So why say pizza? Because pizza has a base and then a layer of toppings, right? So I always have the base, like the essentials, the utilities, and emergency fund as my base, and rest of the things I can spend in the way that I want, depending on the mood, right? So it's like the toppings, like I can just add or not add things to my spending.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, now it's time to hear from the chat. What is your biggest financial goal you're working towards right now? And I give you guys to make some responses in the chat. It was a great analogy. Getting out of credit debt. I feel you, Stephanie. Yes, getting out of debt, it's a monster that makes you feel like you're drowning. I definitely understand that. Managing student loans and using Roth IRAs and 401k, etc. investment. Okay, saving more for emergencies, definitely. I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, let's get started. I'm going to take myself off of speaker mode and I'll let you share your screen.
Okay.
Creating wealth and saving plans. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we're all set.
Okay. All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Let me back to my next slide. So today, what we are going to do in the session is finding out who am I, what we are going to do, and why we are doing it. And we'll get into the workshop. And towards the end, we can look into some try to answer as much as questions that you have. So I'm Rafna Bash. I'm a tech consultant, mentor, and founder of Aktibeto. Aktibeto is a platform that helps individuals, particularly women, in transitioning into tech careers by providing guidance, hands-on experience, and community support. I've been in the industry for over 10 years, working on everything from software development to infrastructure, product strategy. I worked mainly in fintech, education, and my clients includes government and nonprofit spaces. But I have done, I have worked in multiple other industries too. I'm also a Google Women Techmaker ambassador and have led community programs through organizations like Women Who Code and Code for Denver. I'm passionate about making tech more inclusive and practical. So today's workshop, our Build and Budget, is all about creating your own very your own budget tracker using Django. So I'm here to walk you through the key steps to get your app up and running, share some insights that I have learned over my 10 years of experience, and answer your questions and hopefully make things a little less intimidating and a lot more empowering. So, what are we building today, or what are we going to see today? We'll build a fully functional personal budget tracker web app using Python and Django. So, mainly we are using Django framework. It's a powerful and beginner-friendly web framework. So, that's built on Python that helps developers build secure, maintainable, and scalable web applications quickly. For a beginner, it's very easy to use Django if you know the structure, how to structure your project and how to code in Django. So Django comes with everything you need out of the box, like authentication, admin panel, form handling, and so much more features. So we are going to see some of it today. We won't have time for digging deeper into it, but I will show you how to use those features, some of those features today. Django follows dry principle, don't repeat yourself. So you can see features that help to avoid repetition. So it is so you will see that you have to create the files and forms and everything in a certain way because it helps Django. It helps us to organize our project and Django to um, uh, uh, process those commands very easily and without any hassle. That's why it's called beginner friendly web framework. It is very security focused, so it prevents common web vulnerabilities like by default. So you don't have to, there are certain things that you just have to code along within that Django so that it will provide all the security that you needed, basic securities that you needed in an app. So you will see you have to build your way. So mainly I will be talking about how to structure your app, so that will help to build a secure and scalable app. We'll use Django to manage our routes, templates, database, the models, and forms today. So I have designed this workshop to give you practical experience in building something real and useful, and you can customize and continue building on it. So this will be a very simple app that I'm going to show today, but I'll help you with what to add next and more features. So this will help you to use tech to solve your problem of budgeting, how to budget yourself, budget and learn your finances, learn more about your finances with your own app. So I have made this more as a beginner friendly. And for those who already know coding, this would help to refresh your basic skills and might also give you a project to work on. You can add more features like integrating your bank account, maybe add investment portfolio based on your budget, credit monitoring tools, maybe use AI to give you analytics on future savings and opportunities. You can add all these features, but if you have this budget tracker, this app will provide the basic outline for your budgeting needs, and maybe add it to your portfolio or not. So this is an interactive session, so ask questions if you have in between. So hopefully I will provide the code that will help you to code along with me, and enjoy the process of turning code into something meaningful to you. So by the end of this workshop, I'm hoping that you will understand how Django apps are structured, and you will have a working budget tracker app to prove it. So let's look at why we are building this app today. So we have learned about finances, managing our expenses with our pocket money, right, in our lifetime, like from our childhood onwards. But in today's world, finance technology, the fintech, is transforming the way we interact with our money. So you have from mobile banking, investment apps to personal budgeting tools. There are so many tools that's available to us, right? So fintech is making financial management more accessible, automated, and personalized than ever before. So why have I chosen to build a budget tracker, or why are budget trackers more such an important part of this ecosystem? Budget trackers give people visibility into their spending habits, income patterns, and savings opportunities. So, without this visibility, it's easy to overspend or lose track of financial goals. As someone said, you can't improve what you don't measure, right? So, you can use the existing trackers that's out there. You have plenty of tools that's out there for tracking your budgets. So I have found some tools are not practical to me. In some, I wished I needed that one feature so that it would be perfect for my needs. So lots of reason that I use one, I prefer one over the other, or I use one for often and another one less as the other. So as a technologist, why not build something for me that's perfect for my needs, right? So that's one of the reasons I chose budget tracker to build today. And also budget trackers will help in making real-time decision, like if you want to decide whether you can afford whether you can afford a weekend trip, or planning a major purchase. A budget tracker helps you make that informed decisions in real time. You can just log in, or you can use your app and see like where you are in budget wise, and whether you can spend, and how much you can spend, right? So when you have your own tracker, you can automate some of the finance management. So with digital tools like the one we are about to build, you can enter and categorize expense with just a few clicks. And as I said before, advanced budget trackers can even sync with bank accounts, apply rules of spending based on our spending nature, right? And also we can maybe send alerts when we are near our limits, and so much more we can add according to our spending nature, and also like our income, and how we like to spend, each of us like to spend, and so much more. And this makes our life easier. As developers and tech professionals, we often build products for others. So this project is a chance to build something for yourself, or for your family, that improves your life while learning full stack skills in the process. So what we are building today is very simple, but the core ideas are foundational to larger systems like expense management platform. Build the platform. You can change this app to a platform where you can manage your entire expenses. Even you can convert it to or add a feature like a banking dashboard where you can see all your transfers and bills, how much you have paid and things like that. Then you can also add investment tracking apps. Somebody has mentioned, but investment manage your investment. So you can build on the today's app, you can build on the investment tracking apps, and also like credit monitoring tools. You can add your own tool to this today's what we are going to build. So this budget tracker is both a learning milestone and also a launch pad for more complex fintech development and finance management. So let's start. How our app is going to work is what I'm going to build today is as a user, you opens a page in your browser and then send a request to the server, and then Django will process that request and then run the Python code, fetches data, and then Django uses template to render the HTML page. And so the rendered page is sent back to as a response to our browser. So when we submit a form, we'll have a form. Django receives the data, it validates it. We don't have to do anything to validate. Django will do that automatically and saves to the database. Then it redirects the user or renders a new page with the updated info. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video, but so that we can save time on typing the code. But I will explain everything in that code, how I have come up with our app. So let me. So hey Amber, can you add play the video? Okay. So here what I have done is I have created a, let's pause now. So I have created a folder in my system. It's called budget. And then I have opened up the terminal. I'm using Visual Studio Code. You can use any editor. It's kind of similar. So, and before starting, if you're trying to code along with me, before starting, make sure that you have installed Python. And we are going to use a virtual environment to run this project. We are also going to use Django, then PostgreSQL as a database. So if you can see in the terminal, I have created a virtual environment. So creating when working with Python and Django, especially Django framework or any other Python framework, it's best practice is to create a virtual environment and use that virtual environment for building your project. Because if we have like multiple projects in our system, like I have another project in my system, a Python project, maybe I'm using another Python framework like Flask or any other framework, it will be confusing for the server and Python to process some of the commands. So if we are creating a virtual environment for a particular project, that project, everything, all the configuration and setup and everything resides inside that virtual environment, and it's easy to process for Django. It's easy to process those code inside and run those projects without any confusion. So always it's best practice to create a virtual environment. So here I have used Python 3. So the command is Python space -m VENV, virtual environment, short form of that. And then I have used VENV, the same name for my virtual environment. That's the second VENV. It's just for the easier purposes. You can name your virtual environment in any way you want it. So the second one you can change into something else, second VENV. And I have used Python 3 because the command Python 3, because I'm using a Mac. So in Mac, to process the operating system, Python is already installed to manage that operating system. So if I use Python in my command, it will get confused in the way that it might relate to the operating system. So I want to to separate it from project command and the operating system command. We are using our latest version, which is 3. So Python 3. So mentioning that as specifically will help Python to understand that this is about the project, not the operating system. So that's why I'm using Python 3. If you're using Windows, you do not have to use Python 3 use the 3 in the command. So the next line is I'm activating our virtual environment. So I've created my virtual environment using Python 3 -m VENV, and then the name of your virtual environment. I've used VENV itself. So on Mac, to activate, you use the command source space VENV/bin/activate. On Windows, VENV /scripts/activate. So these are the commands. So once I have entered the virtual environment, it's you can see in the beginning of that next line, you can see my virtual environment is being written. So now we are inside the virtual environment. So virtual environment is activated. So next we need to install our Django. So for installing the Django, the command is pip3 install Django REST framework, and then a bunch of code psyco pg2/binary. Not slash, minus binary. So pip3 is a package manager inside the Python. Again, I'm using 3 to specifically saying that it's the project one. So it will help to run to whatever we wanted to install inside the Python. It will help with the installing and running inside our project. So install Django. It's Django framework. Django REST framework is used because if we are going to use some kind of APIs later, this will help. So we are setting up our development environment with all the things that we think we might need today or like later on when we expand our app. So Django REST framework is to help with importing or using APIs later. And then the next PSYCOPG2 minus binary. It's a PostgreSQL driver. It's a database for Django. So it will help to access Postgre for inside our Django project. So once, so you can see that it won't take much time to install Django inside our project. It will literally take like 1 or 2 minutes. So now we have installed our Django. Now we need to start our project. So to start the project, you use a command Django -admin space start project, and then config project name. So I'm using config and space dot. So that's the command here I have used. So this is this will keep our root folder clean. So it's an industry standard to separate the main project setting from app specific logic. So that's why we are using the project name as config. It's okay to give another name for your project, but industry or best practice is to keep it as like configuration file, because we are not going to use anything specific related to our app inside this project folder. For that, we have app folder. We will develop or create a app folder. Anything the overall anything that related to overall project settings, that goes into the project. So I'm calling it as config, so it is much more understandable or easy to understand. So once we create a project, you can see as soon as I type some of the commands, you can see on the side it's creating folders to show that these are being created. And so next is creating an app. So I'm using this command, Django/admin or Django-admin start app, and then name of the project, name of the app. So I'm calling it as budget here. As the name, you can give any name. So this is important to know that Django can have multiple apps in one project. So for example, if you wanted to add like an investment tracker, like as another project add-on to this project, or something like that, anything like that later on. So inside this project folder, which is config, you can have another app. So say if we are going with investment app, you can say start Django admin start app investment, and you create investment app inside the same project. So the configurations will be the same. We can create multiple apps inside one project. So Django have that feature. And so this way all the app specific things goes into this apps folder, and everything related to the whole project, entire project, like installing something, that goes into the project folder, and we have named our project as config. So you can see that the budget app folder is created on the left hand side. Now let's look into configuring our database. So we have our project, we have our folder. So if you go to settings.py in the config file, config folder, you can scroll down, you can see the databases. So you can see that the SQLite is the default that Django has provided. For local development, we can stick to SQLite, but for production, we can use PostgreSQL in this case. So I'm using Postgre. You can use any other database, but Postgre is more convenient for Django, and it's more trending. So that's why we are going with the PostgreSQL. So inside the database's default, we are going to mention a couple of code here. So I'm copy paste that engine. So we have to say to Django that this is the engine that we are going using. So instead of SQLite, I'm mentioning PostgreSQL. And I'm going to copy paste some of the codes here so that it won't take a long time. So I'm going to give a name for our database. You have to use the left-hand side as a capitals, and on the right-hand side, it's you can use the smaller letters, and everything has to be in single quote. So for name, I'm going to import a library, import OS, which will help me import other environmental variables, or to help me configure our database. So after importing that, I'm going to give a name called os.getN. GetN function will help load environment variables for my databases. So I'm naming my, so DB name, I'm naming my database as budget DB, budget underscore DB. You can give any name. Then so for the database, we need to have a user and password, and we need to mention the port. So I'm entering all those environment variables inside this database list. So user, again, I'm using getEnv, and I'm giving a DB user as the name, and Postgre as my database as the user. And then password, I'm keeping it as password. Then host, so I'm naming it as localhost. This is for our development environment. And then for port, I'm mentioning a random port. You can use any port if you want, but this is the port that I'm using. So this is the settings for configuring PostgreSQL into our Django project. So I'm taking out the rest of the, I'm cutting that rest of the default settings, and I'm adding another line of code. Let me pause this. Line of code after the database, because we are going to use SQLite as our local, for our local development purposes, and for production we are using PostgreSQL. So to use this in our to use SQL as our fallback, or our development environment database, we after database we add this set of code. It says that if SQLite, DB SQLite is true, is set as true, then use this engine, this host, PostgreSQL, SQLite as our database. So it is written after the database. Make sure that you written this code of if block after the database, because Django reads the database's configuration at runtime. So by adding this if block after the default configuration, we set Postgre as the default, but allow our environment variables to override it for development or fallback as SQLite. So you can add, so we have added the database here. We can add static files, templates, authentication system, APIs, everything in the settings, in the project settings.py. As you use them, or as you scale the project, you can add all the configuration in this file, settings.py, the project settings.py by file. And so now we have used you've seen that we have used this environment variable inside the database, but we can use environment variables to store database credentials in a separate file that's called .env. So I'm creating a .env file outside the project folder, so that it's not just not specific to just the project and app folder. So inside this, I'm using the same thing that I have given in our database inside here too. So instead of hard coding, we can give this, or we can keep that as a default local dev settings. So save all these files, .env. So it's the same that I just copy paste all these inside this. And now, so we have finished our building all our configuration. Now let's look into implementing our app. So for implementing our app, we need a database model, and then we need a form to enter our expenses, then a view and a template. So first we are going to create a model. So in the budget app, in the budget folder, there is models.py. It's created by default, so you don't have to write any default model. So I'm declaring a class here. I have named my model as expense model, and I'm using models as class, importing models from our models database. And so here, what you can see here is I have entered a category choices as a variable, and I have list some of the expenses that we can add. I've considered you can add anything you want. It's just a few things that I have added into my category choices. So this will help me to categorize for my financial tracking, right? So here I have using a variable category that's equals models dots. I'm creating a model of category with a char field. So category, if you think about it, we are using a text, right? Some characters. So char field, and I'm giving a maximum length. These are constraints that you can add. You don't have to add it, but this is good to have like a restriction on what you can do. So models.char field, maximum length 50. I have given random, and then choices to category choices. So it will give us this as a choice, like drop down list. And then I have added an amount. Again, this amount will be an integer. So integer, I mean decimal point, there will be cents, right? Not the dollar amount. So I have used models.decimal field, and I have given a length and also decimal, how many decimal points I want in representing my amount. And then I'm adding another variable description and the field for my model description, which is again a character field. I have entered as text field, so it will give me a long paragraph or text box. And then I'm saying that it can be null and also it can be blank. I don't have to enter the description always for all the categories. Then I am entering a date. So wanted to track when I have made my spending, right? So models dot, there's a field called date time field, or you can use date field, so it won't give the time. You can have both. And then I have kept it as like auto, because I wanted to add, whenever I add the expense, I wanted to add it as that expense as added, or you don't have to do it, so that you can manually enter the dates. So this, I just, for the easy purposes, I just added whenever I added my expenses, when do I add the time and date I have added. And then we are returning, we wanted our model to return something back, right, whenever we access. So I'm giving a formatted string. So I wanted my expenses to be displayed in a specific format. So that's why I'm giving this style. So return F, double quotes, and then self dot category. Category is the variable that we have used. Then a hyphen or minus sign, and then dollar amount, I mean a dollar sign, and then I again enter self dot amount, then close the quote. So this will return, my expense model will return my data in that style. And save this model. So now we have created the models. Once we create the models, we go to the terminal and we need to add this we have already configured our database, so we need to add this to migration. So we have to integrate our model into the Postgre. So for that, we are using a command called manage, Python 3 manage.py, make migrations. And then, so that means that all the changes that I have added would be applied to my database. And then Python 3 manage.migrate. This will migrate everything. This will add and save everything inside my database. So once we do that, we have configured our model, we have created our model. So once we do that, we have to register our model in admin panel. So when we register, you can go to admin.py. It's also default file. So sorry, excuse me. So when we wanted to, why we wanted to register the model is when we register a model in Django's admin, this admin.py, using the admin.py file, we are telling Django that I want this model to show up in the admin panel or admin dashboard, so I can view, add, or edit, or delete records through a web interface instead of going to the code and change something. So this will help developers or testers manually add and inspect data without writing a custom code or custom front end to watch all the dashboard manipulation or data manipulation using a dashboard. And also, like, if you are creating this for a group of people, or like for customers, only certain people have access to this admin panel, like you or your team can access this panel. So it's a safe way to manage the data. And also you can customize how the data appears and make it easier to manage large data sets. So that's why we are registering admin. You can skip this step for time being if you want. You are the only one using and your time being here, but this is something that will help you manage your large data sets. So here we are importing the model because we are going to use that model to display the data, right? So importing models from our models. Then we are giving the command to register into the admin panel our expense model. And I'm creating a class. Excuse me. So I'm creating a class expense admin, and then I'm listing a few things. So expense class expense admin dot model admin. So this will create a model for the admin for the model, and I'm using certain fields that will help me to say that these are some of the things that I wanted to see in my panel, in my dashboard. So I'm using list display, and it is pause this. So list display is showing what are the fields that I wanted to see in my dashboard. So category, amount, and date. I don't want the description. Then I'm also including a search field so that I can search. I've used here a search by category and search by amount. I have two things that I can search for, and then list filter. So filter the list with by category and date. So these are some of the default things that which will be helpful in our dashboard. So save this, and let's go to, so now we have created the model, the admin. Let's go and create a form. So we don't have a form.py file, so I created a file inside the budget app, forms.py. Inside this, I am importing our Django forms. So from Django, import forms, and I also bringing or importing our models because the form, whatever form data that we are collecting, it's saved into the model, and we are also retrieving the data from the model. So so I'm using a class expense form as name, and then forms.model form. A model form will help create a form in a certain way. So that's why we are using model form. And then I'm using class meta to create my form. So class meta, so let me pause this. So class meta is where you connect your form to a model, and tell Django what fields to include from that model. So we can have any information inside the form. We do not have to include all the things inside the form, right? So this is class meta will help with that, and tells the form that which model it's based on, and also which fields that I want the form appear in the form. So that's why we are using meta. Otherwise, you would have to write something like forms dot char field, just like how you created the model. You have to use the use commands to create each field inside the form. So that will be a duplication of the logic that we have already created in the model, right? So as I've said in the beginning, Django follows the principle of don't repeat yourself. So, to avoid that, we can use this class meta. So we do not have to write everything that's we written. It's similar like model start char field. That's how we created our models, right? Similarly, we are using the same thing like form start char field, like that. We are creating the fields here in the form, so we can avoid that. And also, like it can become like if we use like a manually writing all this form start char field and all the labels and everything inside the form, it will become a headache for maintenance. If something like if the model change or of the form we wanted to change, it will become a maintenance headache. So this is the best practice to use create a form inside Django, and then save this, and then we go to views. Views is where we write what need to be done. We have the model, we have the form, we have configured everything. What should we do is written inside the views. So I'm importing models again here because we are going to use the models here, and also we are going to use the forms here. So I am importing that forms also here, and then instead of, so far we have written class, but here in use we are writing function because we are writing what we wanted to do. So I given a function name as home. You can give any name. So if request dot method equals post. So what I'm trying to do here is if my form, if a user enters something on the form and the form has data, I want all those information. I want to do the rest of the thing. So if request.method is a post, I'm creating a variable called form equals expense form request.method, request.post. So I'm taking all the information from the form, expense form, and storing it in the variable form. And if form, and we are checking again, if form is valid, data is valid inside the form, then we are saving that form.save, and then redirect to the home. So after saving, we are redirecting to the home page itself or home itself. So I'm using a name home here, and you can see that redirect is not defined because we have not imported. So I just imported the redirect inside shortcuts. So once that is done, so we have form data. Now we are going to say that if a request is not post, so there is no form, we just wanted to render the form without any data, then we wanted to show just the form. So we are using the form variable here to show or display or to access the form. So when there is no data, then it will just show the form format that we created in the expense form. And so once we have the form, I'm using the same page to display all my expenses. You can create another function instead of having this inside the home. I can write another function and I can create another HTML page to show the expenses, but I'm using the same page here for simplicity. So I'm declaring a variable again, expenses, to show my expenses. So expenses equals expense, which is our model, expense dot objects dot all. So what this says is objects expenses are model, and then objects access that expense that model, and objects is the default manager Django provides for every model. So it gives you access to query methods to interact with the database. So it's for every model. You can use the objects, and then all is for getting all the rows or all the data from the expense database. So this reads as get all the expense records from the database expense and store them in the variable expenses. So that's what this line is about. Then we are returning a statement where we are rendering something to our web browser. So what we are rendering is, along with the request, we are giving where to go, a web page. So I'm using budget/home.html as a link. We have not created the HTML page here, but what I'm just giving that right now to see that, and a comma and a curly braces. I'm giving two fields. One is expenses in single quote. It's a variable. Expenses is a variable inside the quote. That expense is a variable, and the other expense, the colon and expense, the other expense is the variable that we declared just above that return statement. And then we are also returning or responding back to the web browser with a form as the variable inside the code. It's a variable form, and then form is the variable that we declared earlier in this page. So that's about our views. Now we have the functions, what to do. We have the model, we have the form. Now we need to define our routes. So for that, we go to the URLs. So we go to the budget app and then create a file, urls.py, inside the budget folder. And then we are going to mention a few things, like we are importing a path to define our routes. So for that, we are using Django.urls. From Django.urls, we are importing a path. And then we are also importing our views. If right now I just have a one view, one function inside the views.py. If you have more than one, you can just say from dot import views, so that all the functions will be available. So right now I just using from dot views. Or if you have like if you want only specific function to be accessed or given as URL, you can just mention those functions as after the import home with a comma. So I'm declaring a variable here, URL patterns, as a list here, and inside that path, I'm giving an empty string, a quotes, and then home is the home function in the view, and then I'm giving a name, home. So we have seen the home being used in somewhere else inside the, I think inside the views. We have in the views redirect, we have mentioned views. So that's because we are using the name instead of just giving the whole redirect function. So this is the path that I'm mentioning for our app. So our app will be in an empty string, and when we do that, we'll get the home function displayed there. So now we have the routes, we have the models, we have functions, what to do, and we want a front end, right? So I'm going to create a simple front end for this one. So I'm inside the outside the folder, like outside the budget app folder and configure folder, I have created a templates folder. It has to be named as templates because Django recognizes it as templates in the same name. So you have to create a templates folder for all the static pages. static means HTML pages. If you're using some kind of HTML, it should be inside the templates folder. So I'm creating a templates folder. Inside the templates folder, I have created a budget, which is our app. So here, as I said, if you're having multiple apps like investment, as in my previous example, like investment, you need to create inside the templates, you need to create another folder. Inside the templates, you need to create another folder, investment, for the investment app. And all the HTML file for the investment app will be inside that investment folder, or that in whatever app that you're using, that app's folder. So I'm creating, we have the budget as the app name. So I'm creating a budget folder. And then inside the budget folder, I'm creating an HTML page, home.html. So HTML, it's the standard HTML. I'm not adding anything like fancy here, just the HTML document. Doc type HTML lan equals en. Then inside that, I'm having a head, and inside the head, I'm having a title that says budget tracker as the title. And then inside the body, I'm going to give the body of my homepage. So here I'm using an H1 to title my page, my budget tracker. You can give any title, and kind of like title, I wanted it to be displayed on the page. And then we have a form, right? And so I'm using the form tag. Inside the form tag, I'm giving a method post, because we are going to render the form data to the database, right, to the model. So inside the form, I'm using a Django command. Django command is represented as curly braces, percentage, and at the beginning and the end. So here I have used CSRF underscore token, which means that this is mandatory for Django. This means that Django will provide by default, will check for, will generate a token to avoid cross-site request for forgery. That means, like, if someone created an fake HTML page on top of our app, and we are going to enter the data inside it, it validates whether this is the same HTML page or not. So Django will do that. So whenever we use a form with a method and an action, then we have to use this command inside the form tag to make sure that we are avoiding any default malfunctioning. And we are using another command inside double curly braces, form dot as underscore p. So it is a built-in Django method that renders all the fields in your form as HTML paragraph element. So you can notice that I'm not using any kind of styling here. So to show my form in a decent way, otherwise this will show in a horizontal, all the fields in a horizontal line. So instead of that, I wanted to separate each field, like the text box and labels and everything inside a paragraph. Like so for that, it's a styling purposes. So this is a built-in Django method. So it's if we use this way, it will create all the fields in a paragraph format, and it saves saves time from manually writing some HTML input and text box and things like that. And it uses the form class we defined in the forms.py to generate the input. So this will automatically includes label, field values, and validation errors, if any. So we don't have to write it. And so then a button to submit our form data. So I'm naming that button as add expense. And now, so we save this, and then in the we have seen in the views that we have, I have used the same home function to show the expenses too, like not just the collecting the form, collecting the data. I'm also going to showcase my expenses in the same page. So I am, for that, I'm creating some HTML tag. So as an H2, just to showcase that this is something different, I have named it as my expenses. And then I wanted to showcase this in a list format. You can use it as table format and form format. You can use it differently. So I'm using it as an unordered list, and I'm writing here a code, a Django code. You can know the Django code by using by seeing that curly braces and percentage sign. So I'm using a for loop here. So for expense in, so going to the views, and you can see that when I return from the view, I am the Django is giving me two variables, right? Expenses and form. So I'm copying that name, that variable name, expenses, and pasting that inside um, our for loop. So for expense in expenses. So what this is going to do is it's going to loop the expenses. So expenses has the data from all the rows from our expense form. So I'm looping all the data from that and going to display here. So for expense in expenses, in a list item, like as a list item, because I'm using a list format here. So this is a session that I'm going to display in a format that I wanted. You do not have to use that format, but I wanted to just to showcase you this is the format that I have choose. So in a double curly braces, I'm saying expense dot category. So if you remember, we have a category a field in expense form, expense model. So expense dot category, and then a hyphen, then again dollar sign, then inside the double curly braces, I'm mentioning expense dot amount. So basically it's showing that the category and then a hyphen and the amount I spent for that category. And after that, I am giving a space and adding a parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, uh, I put a double curly braces, and I'm adding expense dot date. So this will give the date when I have added that expense in that category. So this is the format that I wanted my expense to be displayed in my homepage. And if I don't have any expenses, for instance, or sometime, which is rare, but if I don't have any expenses, then we can use a Django code, which is empty. So if empty, so that means that it's checking that if empty, then I'm going to use a list item to say that no expense yet. So this is my HTML page where I am going to show my expenses, and then end for loop by saying giving curly braces and percentage sign, and inside that end for. So we have the home.html, and save all this. And now let's so now we have everything, like our forms, the front end page, then we have the function, what to do, we have the database. So let's run this project. So before running, I wanted to change some of the configuration. So go to settings.py, scroll down to, or scroll to get the templates list. And inside that template, in the direct, so we are mentioning the directories. So as you know that we have, Django has a way to order or structure your app. So all the static files like HTML will be inside the templates folder. So I'm mentioning where I can find the templates or the HTML page. So that goes under the direct dir name. So base dir, there is already, if you scroll up, there is a base dir which provides the default link where to find the app. So base dir space slash space, and then in single quote we are mentioning templates. So save the settings.py, and then so we have all the configurations now in a fully in a fully formed way. So now we can run the program. Let me see if I have running the programs in the video. Okay. So go to terminal, and then you have to make migrations because we have not changed anything inside the model, but still, like for making sure that we have added all the migrations, go to migrations, and then make migration manage.py, make migrations, and then Python 3 manage.py migrate. So once we did this, it says all okay. So remember, we have used um, admin panel to see our admin. So for accessing, right now we do not have a database for storing the user details for signing up and logging in and all those stuff. So to access the admin, the dashboard, right? We have registered our model in the dashboard. I'm going to create a super user. You do not have to do this. I mean, it's good to have the space on your app so that you have the admin power. You can see everything, and you have a web interface to manage your data, but it's not like a requirement to create a super user. So you can use manage.py create super user. Create super user is the command. So it's gonna ask certain things like username, email address, password, and repeated the password. So I've used the username as test user, email address test user. So it's I have entered the password here, test user 123, my test user 123, and it's because I have the username and email address as test user. It's asking me for the validation, so it's you can see that Django is validating or creating the password. No, don't have username in your password kind of validation, right? So it's asking me. So for the time being, I replied yes, I'm keeping that as my password for my super user. So super user is created now. So we have access to super user, admin panel using the super user. Now, another thing that you wanted to do is go to the project's URL. So config files, there is a in the config file, there is a default urls.py. So inside that urls.py, you can see that an admin path. So I'm going to copy that and going to add. So in this URLs config dot, like in the project URL, we only have access to, or we have only mentioned the route to the accounts. So that will go to admin, but we wanted to showcase our app too, right? So we have to mention our app's URL inside the project URL. So inside the config file folders, use the urls.py to mention our path. So again, I'm using an empty string to access my app. path, empty string, comma. I'm using a keyword include. You can see that it's not defined. So after the path, I'm including, I'm adding that include keyword, and include, and inside the parenthesis, budget is our app name. So budget.url. So it will go to the budget folders urls.py and access the URLs inside that. So now let's save all these things and run our app. So for running our app, we use Python 3 manage.py, Python 3 space manage.py. Manage.py run server. So you can see that there is an error that says that app, there is no app mention. So go to the settings .py in the config folder, and we have, so you can see that installed apps, we have not mentioned our app. So that's our new app, right? So we have to mention our app there, and then run the program, run the server. It's giving me another error. It says that the app is not inside the installed apps. What I can see here that I have not saved the settings.py. You can see a white dot there. So I have not saved this file. So I'm saving this file, and then it will run. So I'm just checking few things where I have gone wrong. I'm trying to check the spelling to mention that, make sure that it is done. So now I've saved. Now if I run the program again, you can see that my app is on at run 8000 port. So that's the end of my video, but I can show you everything inside the what happens. So when you run, sometimes you will get an error like this. So if you Amber, if you can show the image, no such table error. I don't know if I read. Okay, so when you run for the first time, it's gonna probably you're gonna get an error like this that says, if you look at the exception value, it says that no such table budget tracker. And can you show the Visual Studio that no such table error VS image? Yeah, so this is what you're gonna get as an error. So what happened here is I have made the migrations here. I've integrated my models into the database, but I have not run the server to make sure that it is already server is accepting. So what I have done here is I've exited my server, and then I ran make migrations again. So I have now ran my server, right? So first time you have to run the server before making migrations. So I missed that part. So I have, so can you show the make migrations slide? So if you can see that I have exited my control, like you control C, if you press control C, you will exit the server. Then I have run the command Python 3 manage.py make migrations. So it's showing me that create expense model here. And then I ran the other migrate command. Can you show the migrate slide? So I have run the migrate, so it says that everything is okay, and then I ran my project, like run server. Then uh, I got the expense tracker. So let me show my screen for our budget tracker. So this is how it looks. Let me refresh this. Okay, so my server is running now, and this is how it is my budget tracker. It's not pretty, I know. You can add your styling and everything on your own, but this is one thing. So hopefully, let's enter some data. Hopefully, we'll get some. Will not get any error. So food. So let's say $50, and met with a friend, just giving an expense. So I'm adding an expense. So you can see that my expenses here. I have not added in the list display. I have not added description. So that's why it's not showing here, the description. But you can see my expenses being added into the uh, data. So this data, once we can add more thing, say, let's say utilities, 200, um, uh, gas, let's say. So you can see that it's been added here. So this is very simple that I have added here. So you have your working tracker here. A few things that how much time we have, few things that we can you can do in the same project, like in the same code as, instead of getting all the expenses, you can get all the expenses in the food category, or for example, like, so instead of expense dot object dot all, um, let me share my screen. Give me a minute. So this is my Visual Studio Code. I'm not sure if you can see it. Okay. So if you go to the views, instead of objects.all, you can have a filter. You can say that objects.filter, and then you can say category equals, let's say, food. So you can give this like that. So instead of getting all the data, it will provide only the food expenses. So you can filter like that. You can get all the expenses ordered by newest, like date. You can add the objects by ID. If you add an ID, some error, you can use that. So those are some of the alternatives you can use. And also I wanted to say, in the home.html, instead of showing this as a paragraph, you can show it as a table, like row. You can, instead of p, you can use as underscore table. You can use it as a list. You can use as underscore ul, so it will form will show as a list format. So these are some of the things that you can add, you can change in the existing code. um, so let me stop right now, right there, and then if we have time, we can get into more of this workshop. If Do you have any questions? Right. Okay, let me go to the chat.
Thank you.
Is there any question?
Yeah, thank you so much for your hands-on tutorials. Really appreciate it. Now we can open up the floor for any questions that you guys have in the chat. Give you a couple moments to type any questions you guys have.
So I can see a question like for general tracker for calories. Yeah, you can use the category to categorize, filter whatever fields you have. You can use category fields to um, um, categorize your expenses. Is it okay to use Spider on Mac? Yes, you can use Spider, but I don't think it would be an ideal choice because Spider is mostly used for Python scripting or data science purposes to build plots and things like that. That is much more in my experience. Spider will be better in that way. It's not optimized for web development kind of workflow. It won't support template like front end view, so yeah, so it is not ideal, but you can use. There's extensions and there's few other things. There's workaround, uh, but it's not going to be easy as using other editors like VS Code or you can use PyCharm if you want, PyCharm or IntelliJ, something like that.
Can you tell us some advantages of using a custom tracker compared to a pre-made template?
Sorry, what's that?
Can you tell us some advantages of using a custom-made tracker instead of a pre-made template?
Yeah, so as I said in the beginning, custom made is for our purposes. So,
Mm.
like, I use several platforms, but a tracker on and sometimes it's something like I don't I wanted that something or one thing that it would make perfect for
Yeah.
me, for my needs. So in those cases, you feel that okay, building it. And so, you can, our all financial needs are different. So to have a custom tracker would help us to learn that process, the finance process, because
Mhm.
you're building it instead of using somebody else's formula. You're just copy and paste things, and we don't really think about what expenses are, or how are we going to manage that. So
Right.
when you build your own, you're kind of like looking into like how I want to manage my finances. So it gives much more a perspective instead of using. So there's nothing wrong in using others. And like, if you're a developer, it's good to showcase your skill set, play around with your skill set, make sure you can check whether things that's in a enterprise platform.
Right. We have another question from the chat. It says, "Oh, Darius asks, what other security features would you recommend adding in the future with this project besides improving the password policy?"
With the form itself, um, there is default security measures for with the Django, like cross-site forgery, and there is data validation. So I have not entered. I'm not shown in this what kind of data, like for for the models we have decimal field, character field. So what if like you enter something else? I have not shown that. So those are built-in validation is available inside the Django. We do not have to write. Other maybe um, You can use other security like because this is a personal finance information, you can have data isolation, like make sure that your user, like, so we have created a super user, but for our own purposes, but for as it is a web app, you can create your own user and then make sure that it is the same user that we are going to see. Then we have seen CSR of protection. Then we can do some kind of validation, um, uh, like when you enter, say for example, in cases like somebody else is also using our app, so in those cases, if somebody is, we both are entering some data inside in our public fold, so to make sure that we are not getting their data, you can use something like form cleaning, maybe form clean field,
Mm.
um, and also like you can use uh, the admin fields, like the password and um, uh, the username or email as read-only fields. Those are some of the things that, like, common security features. Then instead of providing the password and everything, the environment variables, like use a separate folder like a .env. um, what else? Those are some of the things, like you can have a secret key for database access. Then you can set up cookie, uh, session cookie. Then uh, yeah. And so right now, like what I've done is simple, like you just going into an HTML page. Instead of that, you can have a middleware where this form data is managed by the middleware and show into the web browser. That's also add an extra validation. um, what else? Yeah. We can use the two-factor authentication. There is Django has the
Hmm.
built-in command, Django uh, minus two minus factor two minus auth. You can use that. There's a command for that. Yes, so I can go on. This is some of the things that comes into my mind when I heard
Yeah.
that question. But yeah,
Oh, we
yeah,
appreciate it.
I
Like,
probably missed something. Well,
no, you gave great insights. We really appreciate it. I think that's it for us today. If no one else has any questions, we will thank Rafni again for coming and showing her insights and helping us build out a budget tracker from scratch. Um, we have another workshop coming up next week, same place, same time, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Gives us a thumbs up, and we look forward to see you guys again. Have a great one.
thank you, everyone.